Hey guys, thanks for holding on for just a couple minutes. We're having too much fun already talking about this, and so that is what took me a minute to get going. But now we are here, and so are you. Blessings and greetings, and say hello to my friend that is goes by the name of Kevon, but we call him Cassells. I'm going to have that wrong, but we might have a little bit of glitching here in the beginning like we did last time.
Take yourselves.
There it is. He's here. Okay, say it again.
Yeah. Cassells.
Cassells, also known as Kevon. So
Yeah,
welcome. Thanks for being here again.
yeah. Of course. Thanks for having me.
The topic of today is a two-part topic only because I kind of think they can go hand in hand, but they're also just two interesting topics that I haven't talked about in a while. And the first one is going to be the flat earth. And I want to know, Kay, how you got into when did it start for you that you believed we were not on a globe, and how and who were your inspirations for that?
Well, I would say, it all started for me when there were a whole bunch of like trolls, right? And, at the time they were trolls to me on the internet. And I had a Facebook friend. I don't know if we're still Facebook friends anymore. This was like a few years ago. And people were like really adamant about the earth being flat. And it was this whole crazy thread, and I would literally challenge these people like, you need to go back to school, which is funny for me to say in retrospect. It's like
Right.
I don't subscribe to the authority figures form of education overall. But as I started going back and forth with these people, they're quizzing me on the things that I believe to know to be the truth. And it just hit me like mid debate, like maybe after like the third time, encountering, a flat earther after that day, that I had to keep going back to Google, to reinforce my own stances. And I was like, I just had to humble myself. I was like, I don't know any of this stuff. I just believe it. And I did everything in my power to go ahead and like debunk it. Like I was literally like, nah, I can't have these people, looking at me stupid or trying to school me. So I went, I did research that turned into a very humbling experience. And um, yeah, like I think that's how most flat earthers are born, right? Like you try to shut it down, you try to prove it wrong. And when you're honest about trying to shut it down, when you look at both sides, I tried to, defend NASA. I'm like, okay, this isn't right. We didn't go back to the moon, and I saw, why, right? Um, or I began to speculate why, and then things just started clicking. And before you know it, I was like typing out this very, modest Facebook post, basically apologizing to all the people that I would go back and forth with. And needless to say, that prompted me to do a whole bunch of other research into a lot of other things.
I assume everyone can hear us, but nobody's telling me, and I'm asking if you guys can hear us in the chat, but nobody's answering. So could you guys just tell me if you can hear us, if one of us is too loud, if one of us is too quiet? One of the things that I don't like is how many sixes are involved in when it comes to like the Earth. So it's like the speed of the Earth is speeding at
Yeah,
600 or 66,660 miles per hour, and I think if you look up like the measurements of the Earth's diameter or whatever, there's
so something,
sixes
yeah,
in that. Um, somebody
yeah, it's
said
all over.
somebody just said no, so no, you can't hear us. Come on,
Oh,
hold on, let me find.
that's not good.
Well, then I don't know what the no
Uh,
is for. We started when we first. Oh, now somebody says I can hear you. One of my chats isn't.
okay,
Oh, what the heck is going on? Okay, one of my. I have two chats up, and one of them is not catching up. So I'm just gonna have to believe this one. That's so strange. And I can't pop this one out. So shoot, how am I gonna do this? That's gonna drive me nuts if I can't have a good chat box here. Okay, everybody just hang on. Hold on to your horses for just a second. No, that's not what I want. Okay. I'm going to have to go do a new live chat Anyway, while I'm talking and making everybody watch what I'm doing, I'm going to mention how I came to the flat Earth. And when I was researching everything and praying for what to do, I felt like the Lord said, "Don't go anywhere near this flat Earth thing right now." And I'm like, "Yeah." Hold on, I can hear my own voice. And I'm like, "Yeah, that sounds good," because I don't know if I believe that. I don't know if I. Oh, wonder what happened. It started on a new link. That's why. That's why.
Uh,
Making everybody watch what I'm doing. I'm gonna mention how. Oh, now I can hear myself, but I can't mute it. Shush.
I can hear you too.
Okay. All right, I've got the right one now. I don't know how that happens. What happened is I started a live video, and then it didn't start. Okay, so if any of you over here on this new one that I didn't realize I started a new one, please share this link in the Discord so that we have the correct link and anywhere else. I realize I got two links. Thanks, Yasin. I've got it now. Okay, so anyway, the way that I came to this was that finally, after my research of everything else, and I mean, the last two would have been reptilians and flat Earth. Those are the last two things I was going to look at. Really, basically, aliens, I guess, would be, because I don't really believe aliens were, I didn't really believe that they were interplanetary to begin with. But I was like, flat Earth is it. I'm not doing, that's the last thing I'm going to look at, and same with reptilians. And the reptilians one just came so easily. And I was like, oh, it's just, to me, it's demons and fallen angels. I do not believe in interplanetary. I wouldn't think you believe in interplanetary aliens either necessarily if you don't believe in space, right? But well, you can tell me. And then when I started looking into flat Earth, there were people that would jump on me about it because I didn't know. Well, if you don't know these things yet, it's like if you're not on the train of flat Earth, then we don't want you. And I'm like, is there anyone that's going to answer these questions? And so finally, yes, I'm here now. Finally, sorry, please share this link. Finally, I got somebody that was willing to talk to me about it and ask questions, and his name is Zen Garcia, and everybody here will be familiar with him. And he gets a hard time for being called Gnostic, but what he does is he refers to a lot of other extra biblical texts as well as the Bible.
Mhm.
And so he's not teaching
Right.
Gnosticism, he's referring to Gnostic readings often, not always, as he refers to many other texts, but he refers to Gnostic books for a lot of information that you can compare to the Bible. And what he would say, I know he would say, just like Gary Wayne says all the time, who's also a big biblical prophecy researcher, is that if it doesn't align with Scripture, they throw it out. If you can't really get that from the Scripture itself, they'll often just say, it's not salvational. You throw it out. So anyway, when I finally came on Zen's show and I said I want to talk about flat Earth, Zen, I want to ask my questions, and I know he'll be gracious enough to answer them. He had a few people in the chat, and I had to say I just stopped one time and I said, I just want to thank everybody in the chat because this has taken me a while to even get here, and we all have to learn. But his answers made sense, and the more I read the scriptures, and the more I talk to people like him and other, I know lots of, pretty much the whole chat is pretty much flat earthers now. It just rings true. Everything makes sense to me. And the great thing is,
Mhm.
I bet Patricia will remember this. She's in the chat. When I was first started this channel, there was no way I was flat earther, and I was kind of afraid to tell everybody, "Hey guys, I didn't know what they were gonna say, and I'm like, "Hey guys, I'm gonna go down the road of flat Earth," and everybody was so kind about it. They're like, "Yeah,
Yeah.
cool, do it." So
Yeah.
that's how
Yeah.
I came to it. That's my
Yeah.
story.
And you went down the lane of tying religion kind of into it, right? Um, I've been having this debate for 2+ years now. I don't know if it really makes sense to subscribe to the Big Bang Theory, which encompasses evolution, but also, subscribe to divine creation. It's either God created the Big Bang, right? Or, if you believe in God, um, or you subscribe to the fact, right? Or the belief that, he created Adam and Eve, just straight up. Like, no little bacteria here that morphed into animals, that morphed into humans.
Mhm.
Like, you gotta pick and choose essentially. I mean, maybe there's some in between, right? Like, if you want to be extra imaginative, but Like the reality is, you know, you can't have both. In my, you know, from my stance, I don't. It just doesn't make sense to me.
If you listen to oh gosh, how does a name just escape me? It'll come to me in just a second.
Hate when that
Oh
happens.
my gosh, it's just
Happens too
I
often, by
know
the way.
him so well too, and suddenly the name. Anyway, you guys know he always talks about he goes around and he asks questions about people if you're a good person. He does the good person test, and it's the good person test asks a lot of questions, but he'll talk about how does you can't have a creation if you don't have a creator, and he'll say look at that building over there, and they'll say how do you know there was a builder, and they say because the building's there. So it's
Right.
kind of like,
There you
okay,
go.
well, this
There you
earth is
go.
here and made the way that it is. Oh, Jeffrey, I don't know if I agree with you on that, but I know that a lot of people will, especially black people. Jeffrey says that God and Jesus are black. Now, here's the thing is, I'm not going to go there today because I almost thought about it, but I'm not going to. But
Mm.
I'm not going to necessarily agree. But however, in my research, I have found that that could be the case. That I looked at that. I looked at that aspect, but this isn't a racial thing. Our faces are frozen, but hopefully that fixes. This isn't a racial thing. Today we're just going to talk about flat Earth and Serpent-Seed. Do you believe it? You don't. You probably don't believe in interplanetary aliens, then, right? Because like space.
Yeah, you know, and that, see, that's where I chalk that up more so as conjecture. I haven't done too much like digging, but logically speaking, if there are, you know, species that we've had, you know, we generally haven't encountered yet, this is probably their home too. You know what I mean? Um, a lot of times people say, "Well, the Earth's not flat. You need to look into hollow Earth theory," and I'm like, "Well, that doesn't have to be mutually exclusive."
Right. I think they.
You
I
know what
think
I'm
they
saying?
go together. I think you can have the hollow Earth and the flat
Perfectly.
Earth.
Yeah. I think the issue is that people just really lack imagination. And I know when it comes to facts and science, you know, you know, you probably shouldn't use that word for most people. But, you know, if you use a little bit of emotional intelligence to, you know, coincide with what's grinding up here, I think it requires a bit of imagination because everything that we've been like convicted of generally was given to us. We have to think outside of the box. We have to literally unlearn or just disregard everything that we come to believe in order to relearn, right? And that does take a little bit of creativity. You know what I mean? Just releasing your ego and just really just allowing yourself to, you know, imagine what might be the truth outside of what they've given me since I was a kid. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
So, you know, just to think that, you know, we're literally just monkeys on a spinning ball, just bulleting through space at, like you said, 66,600 miles per hour, right? Around the sun and spinning at 1040 miles per hour. You know, like someone had to tell you that. Like you don't feel it. You don't go out, you don't fly on a plane and see the earth spinning that fast at all.
Mm-mm.
You literally have to surrender what you've come to believe as opposed to, you know, actually just thinking for yourself, you know?
One of my favorite scriptures that I think describes the earth being flat. Now, of course, somebody could argue with this, but in Matthew 4:8 and also in Luke 4, like I think it's Luke 4:5. But it says, again, the devil taketh him up into an exceeding high mountain, and sheweth him all the kingdoms of the world and the glory of them. I don't know how he could see the whole world from the mountaintop if it weren't flat.
Right. Right. Yeah, that was one that I used quite often. There's a lot of Bible texts that I used to refer to in my debates, but it was so long ago. I just, you know, kind of forget all of this stuff. But it just makes sense. It makes a lot of sense. And, you know, I'm not a Bible literalist, right? Like I don't take it 100% literal. However, I do believe that all of this is based off of the truth, right? You know, you spoke about your Gnostic peer, and
He's
you know
he's not Gnostic.
his stance. Oh, he refers to,
Yeah.
Gnostic teachings, right?
Yep.
Um, if it doesn't coincide with the scripture, you just throw it out. That that's a great premise. Like the Bible itself is a great premise, particularly speaking to people of any religion, right? And that goes back to the whole it's either evolution or it's not, you know?
Yeah, and evolution and adaptation are two different things, and that's something that's hard to get people to realize because even though the birds that Darwin was working with, it was an adaptation, it wasn't an evolution. Evolution is changing kind, and adaptation
Hmm.
is not changing kind but changing within its kind. And so changing kind means like from a bacteria to a human. That hasn't happened. In fact,
Right.
bacteria are far more complex than we are, far more complex. So
Thanks,
there's
Corona.
yeah, whatever that is.
Right.
There's several verses that speak to the pillars, like Psalm 75:3 speaks to the pillars of the earth, and that's why I
Hmm.
had posted a picture on your Facebook that one time when somebody was asking, and I said you can look at the old Hebrew visualization of the four
Yeah.
pillars and the earth on it with the dome, and of course,
Mhm.
I was going to mention that in 1 Chronicles 16:30 it talks about the world being firm and that it cannot move. In 1 Samuel 2:8. And if people think I'm going too fast, maybe they want to see these things. I'll go to 1 Chronicles or I'll go to 1 Samuel 2:8 and I'll just read it real. You don't mind, do you?
Absolutely not.
Okay. So
I'm gonna tell you, these people are gonna learn today.
okay. So 1 Samuel chapter 2 verse 8. He raiseth up the poor out of the dust and lifteth up the beggar from the dunghill to set them among princes and to make them inherit the throne of glory. For the pillars of the earth are the Lord's, and he has set the world upon them. Um, Isaiah 11, Isaiah 11:12. Wait, what did I do? 11:12. There we go. And he shall set up an ensign for the nations, and shall assemble the outcasts of Israel, and gather together the dispersed of Judah from the four corners of the earth. Four corners. So that's you and I have talked about. Is it a circular pizza pie flat or is it a square? And I tend to believe it's a square. There's another one about the four corners. So hold on, let me while I pull up Revelation. Hello, it's the last book in the Bible,
I
Aaron.
think I remember the Revelation one. There being a Revelation one that I would refer to a lot. That's probably gonna be the one.
And after these things I saw four angels standing on the four corners of the earth, holding the four winds of the earth, that the wind should not blow on the earth, nor on the sea, nor on any tree. Is that the one you were thinking of?
Yeah, 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 yeah. That
Okay.
was one of because Revelation is my favorite, Bible book of them all. So it struck an extra chord, um, because I remember in Bible school, Bible study, these little nuggets, right? Like they were always here. They just didn't click because of all the propaganda around us. And it's funny, like everyone says, well, how can everybody just be in on this, right? Like how can they just do so well at hiding this? And I'm like, well, think about it. When you become a teacher or a professor at all, anywhere, um, you're given the same curriculum as the people who taught you and the people
Right.
who taught them,
Right.
and so on and so on. So the teacher standing in front of the globe, pointing, to land masses on the globe, she's ignorant. Like she doesn't know that she's lying to you, right? I often refer to, so you mean to tell me that everyone in NASA, well, actually, no, not everyone in NASA. I think only the people with the telemetry data are really in on it, right? Who really,
Yep.
really understand. I'm sure if you're close enough, you start to see a few things that just don't quite click with, science, right? Things that's observable and repeatable. But it's perpetuated by, it's not a willing ignorance, but it's just hard to catch such a concerted deception, when before you're even able to put together sentences, your reality is a ball with other balls surrounding it, you know?
Yep. Uh, I'm gonna pull up these pictures. I put them up on your Facebook, so you're not gonna be able to see them, but you saw
Okay.
them because I pulled them up on. I put them up on your Facebook. But I'm gonna show everybody else this image, and it uses the scripture from Job that says, "Who was it that devised the channel for the overflowing waters?" And this one shows the earth as a square and waters that flow through channels, and that's where we get a hollow earth topic. And I will tell you, Zen
Okay.
Garcia has talked about that, and I bring him up because he's somebody that has answered a lot of my questions for this, and I trust his judgment on this. But he talks about that at the North Pole is where there's actually an area that sucks in the water, and that's why the tides happen, and it goes into the underground caverns, and that's how the
Interesting.
tides go in and out. And that you can find that in the story of Jason and the Argonauts, that they talk about something like
Not
that.
fun.
Well, this is so that you can look at mythology as well to refer to what's going on the earth, especially when it comes to giants, gnomes, fairies,
Hmm.
Bigfoot, chupacabra, blah blah blah. So anyway, that's the first image I'm going to show you guys, and then the next. Oh, get off. Worked perfectly, dang it. The next picture talks about the summer solstice and the winter solstice and the sun traveling through channels in the
Hmm.
firmament, and it's got multiple channels
Yeah.
that the sun would travel through. Now, I don't, I didn't make these, so I'm not really good at explaining how this might work. I don't know where the sun goes. If there's two suns, I tend to think there's two suns because I watch movies.
Yeah. Yeah.
I watch movies that talk
It's
about two
so weird.
suns. Go ahead, yeah, go.
Yeah. No, I was just gonna say, like, yeah, there's been several times. I have this actual video that I did a few months ago, and there was, I mean, a very elaborate light, right next to the sun, and surrounding it was like an aura. It was so weird. I'm gonna dig it up and I'll post it on my Facebook so you know what I'm talking about. It's actually, I added like commentary to make it funny, but it really just brings up that question, like, the whole interdimensional thing, and uh apparently beyond the ice walls, there are other suns and moons in circuits, as you go on, outer rings and everything. Some more questions. Everyone thinks that, flat earthers, we just know everything. We believe that we know everything, but the thing is that we have so many questions with what we know, right? And I think if you don't challenge yourself, then you're always just gonna, chase, okay, what's out there in the respected science community? Let's go with that. You're always gonna chase that if you, and that goes back into the lack of imagination thing, right?
I agree. Yeah, I was going to tell you what you said about learning from your teachers. It was like that when I was in medical school. I was trained as a physician assistant and a master's degree, which is basically like a doctor. I
Wow.
can treat patients and do all that stuff, and I did that for a long time. I'm not going to do it anymore. But what what they did is you went to school for many hours out of the day, and then you were sleep deprived, and they keep you away from your family. And then when you go to learn from people in the clinical aspect, what you know you what you what comes down to it basically is that they try to humiliate you. And so the way you learn is they basically pull you away from. How do I get back to this live thing? What am I doing here? There we go. Basically, they pull you away from your family, they sleep deprive you, they grill you with information, and then when you go out in your clinicals, if you don't get it right, you're humiliated. So you're not going to go with any other way that you're taught. You're going to believe that, and you're going to think people are crazy for any other way, and you're going to go on and to do the same thing to people on the next round. If you're going to ever be an instructor as a medical, I mean, I wasn't going to do that to people, but it was done to me a little bit. And I will admit, there's a ligament on your liver that I'll never forget because I was so grilled about it and humiliated because I didn't know the name of the ligament. It's called the falciform ligament. I'll never forget it because I was humiliated in front of other people to
That's
learn it. So in some ways it works, but it's indoctrination.
right.
It's literally a cult and
Absolutely.
indoctrination.
Hmm. That you said the word indoctrination. That's all it is. That's all it is. We're the authority. Don't worry. To give us the money, we'll go out there and we'll see what's out there for you. Same thing with look, Dr. Fauci. what he's been doing for such a long time, and he's just the poster boy, he's just an
Mhm.
example. But, big pharma, we know what's best for you. Don't worry about it. Just give us your money. You know what I mean? They work directly with doctors, right? Hand in hand. So they regulate the prices, they regulate the science, and if you question it, you put a post on Facebook questioning the authority, you get banned, you get,
Yeah.
threatened, you get, it's indoctrination. Just plain and simple.
By the way, thanks to Death 3 because he reminded me that it was Ray Comfort that does the good person test, and I love Ray Comfort. He does such a good job talking to people about difficult things. Unfortunately, he does believe in the universe and the globe and things like that, but I can forgive him for that. Also, 2 Death 3 says,
But
that they used to put a dunce cap on kids a long time ago. Yes, they did. They, put kids in the corner with the dunce cap for getting wrong answers.
I would see pictures and memes, but I was like, nah, there's no way that's that.
I believe it
Wow.
was a real thing. Yeah. And I would have forgotten about
Uh,
it. I seriously don't think it would have occurred to me, but thanks to the listener for reminding me about that because uh 2 Death 3 because that's exactly what that was for. You're the dunce, you're the idiot, you're the clown, you're the fool. You didn't get this answer right. So,
Right.
yeah, just another humiliation
Right.
ritual. I just wanted to read Isaiah 40:22 real quick that kind of explains well, it just mentions, I'll just read it, about the circle of the earth. A lot of people think that that means that the earth is a circle, maybe. Or it could be that the dome, is round, but the earth is flat. Like in the pictures that I pulled up, it shows that. But it says, "It is he that sitteth upon the circle of the earth, and the inhabitants thereof are as grasshoppers that stretch out the heavens as a curtain, and spreadeth them out as a tent to dwell in." And I would say one of the most convicting, hard to watch videos for me, and it still is crazy, is that one of the rocket ship that goes up and then just gets stuck,
But yeah,
just
just
stops,
stuck.
and is doing this.
Yeah, like doing the spin. Yeah, yeah, yeah. No, that kills me. I'm just like, what is going on? So like, there's two cameras, right? There's one that's showing. Well, it's one is directly down, face of the earth, and then the other one is like as it's spinning on the side, a lateral, spin. I don't see. I don't know how anyone can look at that and not be at least, triggered, to think this. There might be something up. It's not like it hit a satellite. What are the chances of that, right? It's not like it hit the atmosphere. Like, what is it? Um, we're taught how to think. We're taught what to think. We're not taught to think. We just accept it. And if you're introduced to even just the idea of a dome, that literally changes everything, especially with, when you couple that idea with, and I mean, there's tons of footage, tons of videos, tons of uh, pictures, depicting a lot of what we're talking about, right? It's just you kind of have to go out of your way to ignore it, at
Mhm.
this point, at
Yeah.
this point.
Yeah, it makes you wonder. Some people think that now some I gotta remember who it was. Somebody thought, oh yeah, so my friend Ark, he's a musician and he does biblical Christian hip hop. But he says he doesn't think that he's not sure about it because right about the time that some guy had come up with a documentary of a Earth-centric universe, but I think that he still believed that the Earth was a globe or something. I can't remember. That's when like all this flat Earth stuff came out, almost maybe to like oppose that. So there's people who question it because they're like, well, it did kind of come out at a certain specific time when this guy was doing it because he was still saying it was an Earth-centric universe. I gotta watch it. I told him I would a long time ago and I didn't. But I was gonna read this one, Job chapter 28 verse 24. For he looketh to the ends of the earth and seeth under the whole heaven. To me, I don't see how you can get globe anymore. And I know people who like my friend and landlord. He even says like, well, the universe is miraculous, and I think a God could make that. And of course he could. Of course it could be this miraculous,
Yeah.
vast, never-ending space that
Uh,
makes us feel totally like minuscule and worthless, in my opinion. But
right.
if he didn't, and you look at the scriptures that says he sees the whole heaven, he looks to the ends of the earth. you're not round if you're looking to the ends of the earth. You don't have four corners
Yeah.
on a globe
Right.
or four quarters, whatever you
Yeah.
think about it. But go ahead and
And
say.
just to kind of rewind just a little bit, what you were saying, with the circle, right? Um, and this is one major issue that I have is the interpretation, the picking and choosing. The circle of the earth. I always challenge people, is a circle necessarily a ball? Is it a sphere? And they're like, well, duh. And I'm like, well, what's the shape of a plate? You know what I mean? What's the shape of, like a disc, whatever? And they say a circle. So I'm like, okay, so now you're choosing what to interpret it as. Now, if you add more context, to that scripture or, multiple scriptures within the Bible, it paints a pretty vivid picture, a very vivid picture. And it was something else that before it escapes me, it's just very black or white questions, right? Here on Earth, we look up in the sky and it's blue. But when we look at the footage from NASA or SpaceX or whatever, the sun doesn't light up space. It's
Right.
just straight black.
Yep.
And for the people who are like totally invested into, the respected space agency narrative, they're all saying different things. You know what I mean? Like as to why this is. And then I'm like, okay, I hear what you're saying. Okay, let me go see what NASA says about this. And it doesn't even line up. You know what I'm saying? So it's like literally everyone's just out there just winging it, right? Like, and that was me at one point. This was very humbling for me. It was like, here I am going to see what NASA says about this to confirm
Right.
what it is that I'm trying to get these people to, be convinced about.
The awesome and hilarious thing about NASA with their little serpent tongue on their emblem is how they lost the
Mhm.
telemetry of how they got to the moon. I mean, they're like
Oh
just
yeah.
clowns. They're like, oh, well, we just don't have that. I think we recorded over
Yeah.
that VHS on accident. Well, we just don't have that technology anymore. And you've got, of all people, one of the dumbest is I remember Paul Romano was making fun of him, but now it's been a while, so his name will come to me later. But he is like the dumbest astronaut I've ever seen in my whole life, and he's always doing stupid things in space. It just like playing the didgeridoo, talking about how to make coffee from like his excrement. I mean, he's just like,
Yeah, 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 yeah.
just
Yeah.
and and he's the one that's like, oh, we just don't have this. We recorded over it. We lost it. And it's like that doesn't even make any sense. It's just as bad as Bill Gates coming out today, or Bill Gates and Melinda, not today, but Bill Gates and Melinda coming out like yesterday or a couple days ago or whatever, within the last week, and and she goes, "My
Mhm.
husband is not going to chip people with this vaccine. We don't even have the technology for that right now." And I was like, "Oh, right, like in 2005 when a guy chipped himself, and
Right.
this whole group of transhumanists that are all about it, and they're putting in things, they're putting in
Mhm.
keypads in their arms to do stuff with and to connect to their phone or their garage door opener. That technology doesn't
Right.
exist. I mean, they just sound like clowns
I mean,
now.
yeah, I know. I mean, think about it. We made a phone call to the moon, right? What is it, Nixon? 240 thousand miles away is the moon. And they were remote controlling, the buggy, not the buggy, the little thing on Mars, right? Which
Oh,
is what
right, right, right.
65 million miles away. And then, I can't even get service,
Right.
out,
In
out
There's a
here
dead
with no
zone
Wi-Fi,
in my town. In my town, there's a
right?
dead
And in
zone.
mind, I'm in the dead zone. I can't do anything without Wi-Fi. And the thing is, like, this stuff was going on before I was even thought of. When my mom was like probably like 4 or 5 years old. You know what I mean? I can't even imagine that. So it just baffles me that that narrative is just chewed up and swallowed every time. I'm like, okay, so, and that's my rebuttal. That's one of my major rebuttals. Why haven't we to the moon? There should be no problem. There should be absolutely no problem. How did we not get through the Van Allen belts the first time, according to NASA themselves? We're going to finally send man to space through the. This is what I mean, they explicitly say it. And I send the links to, people that I debate with, and they literally go out of their way to argue out of it. I
Yeah.
just can't process it.
it's the paradigm shift again. They can't handle, like that girl that blocked you ended up blocking you. I can't remember what the subject was now. It might have been flat Earth, but it's like
It was. Yeah. Sure.
if you can't even if you're gonna here's what I do is those people ask questions in a certain way where you know they don't want the answer. And so I've kind of gotten to the point
Yeah.
where I'm like, you're asking in a way that you don't want the answer, so I'm not going to give you one.
Right.
You probably have more patience than I
Right.
do when it comes to that, but I kind of don't anymore. But I'm like, yeah, somebody mentioned the phone call. Like Nixon got the phone call real time, and yet you and I get a delay when we try to go live here. Sometimes, or
Yeah.
I get a
Yeah.
delay with the chat. Come on, like how does he have like this? Oh, great! I'm glad you guys made it. Way to go! Good job. It just doesn't
Yeah,
make
you
any
know what?
sense.
I was watching a feed between President Trump and I think it was one of the first ladies to go to space or something like that, and she was on the ISS allegedly.
Mhm.
And I might be going crazy. I might be making this up, but I doubt it, right?
Right.
There was a point where, and this is when I was like super obsessed with flat Earth. Like at that point, like I was like, I couldn't take my mind off of it. I swear, there was a point where the lag was totally inconsistent for like a short window. And that just to me just gave it away.
Right.
Just gave it away. And I can kind of get this sense from the president that he was like, yeah, oh yeah, we'll learn. Like you know what I mean? Like oh, you guys are totally done for. You know what I mean? There are people at home. We can play this game here, but there are people at home picking up on them. You know,
Yeah.
even with the press conference when he signed the initiative for us to go back to Mars or to the moon, either or, and he signed the executive order, and on his desk is a dome, like the little glass dome thing,
Mhm.
and he has like the little space action figure toy, and he's literally treating it like all flimsy. He's just like tossing it around, just totally like no regard for it. And I take all of that stuff as symbolic. And people, they discount how important this is. Like if
Yeah,
you
they do.
we don't care about the shape of the earth. It doesn't really matter, right? It really doesn't matter. It's the fact that we're being lied to about it.
Right.
And every single person that humbles themselves and they come back around, they're like, "Come on, I'm so sorry." I mean, these are people who blocked me, called me all types of names, whatever. At this point, I'm numb to it. But it's really rewarding when people come back and they're like, "Look, I'm not gonna lie, man. Like, I totally see why you go this hard, and I see, I get it myself. And it makes me feel like there's certain days where I just never want to talk about it again, ever again,
Mhm.
even to politics. But if there's just one person, for a season who reaches out and they're like, yo, thank you for not stopping. And it happens pretty often. Not so much recently because I kind of just gave it a break. But I just tell that person, thank me by passing along the information. Because if everyone gets on the same page as far as at least challenging authority, in any way that we can collectively, we're headed in the right direction. And I think that's, where we are, honestly.
That's what that gal was saying on your Facebook that ended up blocking you. She was asking why it was important. And
Yeah.
I was trying to tell her, you were trying to tell her, but and I think you and I were talking. I said that I have a friend and he's not live here. I would just mention who he is because he knows. But Serpent-Seed and Flat Earth are basically what brought him to the Christ following. He was a Mormon, so another secret
Oh.
society. Basically, at the top, it just
Uh,
becomes satanic because of all the secret stuff they're up to. But he knows that now. But what woke him up to like who Jesus Christ is and how the world was created and how the Bible talks about it was learning about flat Earth and Serpent-Seed. And I'll talk about Serpent-Seed in a minute, um, but because that's what woke him up, he became like just this full on, I've got to tell everybody about it. And what he's right about is it is important, like you said, because
mhm.
it is a paradigm. It's one of the bigger paradigm shifts, which is probably why it was one of the last things I was willing to look at. And I even felt in my prayer, the Lord said, make this the last thing that you look at because this is going to be the biggest shift of your thinking of
Yeah.
any of these things that you've looked at. All the other stuff was like
Mhm.
easier pills for me, but that was the one
Yeah.
like it took time for me to
Yeah.
even want to learn about it. So that's why it's important because it's one of the many truths that we can learn and
It
understand
ties everything together.
everything.
Everything. You're like, whoa, where I live is this. It's been I've been lied to about that. What else is? That's how I got into politics. It all started with flat Earth. I was like, whoa. I used to watch CNN. I mean, not that I believed CNN, but I used to. There was a point where I was in high school watching CNN every single day to see the lies. Now that I look back, it wasn't enough because you gotta cross reference and everything.
Hmm.
But I got to a point where it's like especially getting into flat Earth, I was like, this is deception that you can't even really begin to imagine, even when you get into the thick of it, right? You're just like, what else? You know what I mean? To this day, I'm like, I feel like I'm, right there with the truth, like, like with certain breakthroughs, and then you learn something groundbreaking, and you're like, oh, I don't know a damn thing. You know what I mean?
Well, just to introduce you to something new, and if you want, and I think it can kind of coincide with this, is I'm not gonna get all too deep, and I think Jeffrey left. He might have gotten mad that I disagreed with the
Okay.
color of skin. Oh no, he's still here. Bless you, Jeffrey. I'm not gonna get into this color of skin, though, I promise. Um, this, when you go back to the book of Genesis, it starts to talk about the seed back in Genesis 3:15, where basically there's a battle line drawn, and the Lord says, "I'm going to put enmity between the seed of the woman and the seed of the serpent." And the serpent word that's used is Hebrew originally, right? We come, and the word is nakash, and that means enchanter or magician. And so, um, another way to look at it is it could be a fallen angel. It probably wasn't Satan himself, and it would be of a reptilian nature, not a serpent that just slithers on the ground, because that becomes one of the judgments that God puts on the serpent is now you will slither on the ground on your belly after this happens.
Mm.
And so this is an entity that is not likely Satan at all, and it's definitely not a snake. It is a seducer and an enchanter or a magician. It's very possible that there was a fruit, and the fruit that this is just the serpent seed idea, guys. I'm not saying this is what you have to believe. Oh, Don Pettit, that's the guy from NASA, the idiot. That's his name.
John
Thank you.
Pettit. Wow, that's the
Yeah.
guy. Yeah, 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 yeah.
two
He is
death
a doofus.
Two Death 3 has all the answers for us today when we have questions. So bless you. You're going to give us all the answers. Okay, so anyway,
Yeah, shout
I'm
out.
I'm just going to go through this, and then I'll ask you what you think about this. And so the fruit, there could have been a fruit that had seducing or enchanting effects, or it could just be that the creature, the reptilian like creature, which when you look at the descriptions of some angels, like this, I think it's the seraphim, they have a reptilian feature, but they are also like there's a
Right.
lot of angels that have like this multiple animal feature, which is probably why we have mythologies where there's been different breeding of animals, like, and you'll end up with centaurs and minotaurs and all these creatures and mermaids. Some of that's just demonic and fallen angely, but some of it's a mixture of fallen angels and humans and creations on Earth, probably trying to create
Hmm.
what they knew in the other realm. Anyway, I digress. Fruit may have had the drug-like abilities. However, if you look at the Hebrew word for fruit, and now I'll probably get this wrong, but I think it's Pirchach. So if ch is kind of a K sound, it might be percock, but forgive me if that's so wrong. But that means progeny, brood, children, or descendants. So if you think about that word being used throughout the Bible, talking about progeny, brood, children, and descendants, then the fruit may not have been any kind of fruit at all, or there may have also been a fruit that had something to do with the seduction. But when the Lord says, "Ye shall not eat of it, neither shall ye touch it," the word "touch" in Hebrew is naga, N-A-G-A, and that means to have to have sexual intercourse with. And so,
Right.
if you think about this, it sounds like there was a seduction, an enchantment, and a sexual encounter with Eve and this creature. And I'm going to
Right.
bring up Cain because God will say, so in Genesis 3:13, God calls all of them before him to account for the misdeeds, and Eve admits that she was seduced. And then Genesis 3:15 uses the word zera, or Zehra, zera. I don't know if I'm saying that right. Um, that means this, that means the word seed, but that word is actually used throughout the Bible in regards to descendants. Again, so it's the word seed, which you could say, well, that could be a seed of a fruit, but that same word is used throughout the Bible, and it means descendants. And so that word was used in Genesis 3:15. Hold on, please don't scream, please. That word was used in Genesis 3:15 and to refer to Satan's seed and Eve's seed. And then Genesis chapter 5 does not list Cain as a descendant of Adam. And you could say, well, Abel isn't really listed either. Well, Abel was killed and he has no descendants. But the descendants of Cain
Mhm.
are mentioned in the scripture. But then Cain is not mentioned as a descendant of Adam. So it's basically the belief that Cain was made because of that encounter, and so was Abel at the same time, and so they were twins, born at the same time.
Twins.
And even when Cain was born, he had a reptilian appearance. And now this is a different um, belief, but I believe, and could be wrong, that Satan was already here on Earth. He was already cast down. He'd
Mhm.
already fallen from heaven. Otherwise, he wouldn't even be doing what he was doing there. And I believe that Earth was where we fell to, and that we were in a different area. Now, some people think we were already on Earth, and that there was there were other humans that were different than Adam and Eve. They were not the same creation. They were just more like grunt workers or something. And so
Oh,
this is where we would get into race, and I'm not going to do it. But anyway, but Abel and oh my gosh, Adam and Eve were different, and so they were created differently. And then when they fell, I thought they fell to Earth, but it could be they were already on Earth amongst these other Adamites. And anyway, Satan's intention has always been, on my belief, to corrupt our DNA, and that's why we're seeing this DNA corruption today. That's why we're seeing that a
yeah,
vaccine that's possibly going to give us a third strand DNA.
yeah,
That's why the fallen angels slept with the sons of the daughters of God, the daughters of the Lord that they found fair, and that's why they've been, created the Nephilim creatures, and began that
Mhm.
whole race. Just to reference, the Jude also mentions fallen angels. If people don't believe that they were fallen angels that came to Earth, that it says the men of old and the of renown and things like that, and they saw the women were fair. I think that there's other references that prove that they were fallen angels, but this is where you can get into extra biblical text that does explain the fallen angels, especially the book of Enoch, the first book of Enoch. I don't recommend the
I
second and
was
the third.
I was just about to bring that up.
Okay, yeah.
Wow.
So go ahead and
Yeah.
say what you want to say.
Well, no, I honestly, when I first got into flat Earth, um, I would really look into the Book of Enoch, and I mean, I don't remember a whole lot of the stuff that I did come across, but it was like just earth shattering for me. Because and reading a lot of the stuff, and it made sense and it lined up with that I was coming across. It just made me wonder what else was, uh, like left out of the Bible. You know what I mean? Like what else was, what other books or scripts might be out there. And when it spoke about the fallen angels, and obviously you're adding a whole lot of context to you know uh what we're talking about as far as the Book of Enoch. But that's like a gold mine of information. And like I said before, like I'm very humbled with learning this truth, and really being able to learn more about it. But it always just makes me wonder, like, what else is out there, like, you know what I mean?
There is other books, and again, the sad thing is what I want people to understand is that any kind of Luciferian or Gnostic or Satanic group will hijack the truth and either try to make you believe it's a lie to scare you, or to get you to believe it because it goes along with their thinking anyway. But you can look at some of these other texts, and you can go to the Sea Scrolls and the Nag Hammadi texts, or you could go to gosh, what is the Aramaic Targum, which is one you might really like because it has a lot more as far as, and it's still script, it's still the Bible, but there's more to the story in the Aramaic Targum, especially this encounter. Now, I don't know that that's exactly what should be in our Bible today, but I do know it sure answered a lot of questions for me that only confirmed my relationship and understanding of who Jesus Christ is. it actually solidified my faith in that relationship. So when people kind of get all, oh, I'm scared, this is Gnosticism, oh, I don't want to talk about this, I don't want to hear about this, I don't want to know about this because it's Gnosticism. I hope that people understand that there's no hidden knowledge or secret knowledge that you have to earn. You could get it. You can just get it. And we're at a time where we can see these things. They were hidden for a long time. We didn't even have them. But now that they're available on the internet and things like that, you can't be afraid to read them unless you don't have a good foundation. If you have a wispy foundation that can be blown over and you're just blown in the wind with every belief, well then no, you probably shouldn't read them. But people made me believe that the Gospel of Thomas talked about Jesus marrying Mary and having children. And so I was like nervous to read it. But I had somebody that wanted to go over the book of Thomas. I'm like, with me on my channel. So I'm like, well, I'm going to have to read the Gospel of Thomas. I'm going to have to know what this says. And then I read it and I was like, wait a minute. There is nothing in there that says that Jesus got married to Mary and had kids. And yet this has been an
Right.
ongoing thing that people have said to me at some point to where I believed it and was worried and nervous to read it. And then I read it and I'm like, wow, it really just sounds like a lot of other scripture. It just sounds
Mhm.
like a lot of other. So anyway, I'll let you speak. I don't want to keep going on, but
No, 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 you're good. You're good. Listen, when it comes to the Bible and where I stand on that, but it's just so rich with information. It's so rich with data. Let's call it data that directly relates to what we're seeing now, what we're experiencing, what we're observing for ourselves. We don't need authority to spell it out for us, right?
mhm.
um it's just remarkable to me. It's just amazing to me that this whole time it's right there. We have access to it. Like you don't need to go anywhere other than your bedroom. Just reach over to that
Mhm.
book right behind you
Mhm.
and you'll literally just be overwhelmed if you once you kind of like adjust the wiring up here. Everything else just looks completely different. Everything is just it just registers completely different.
It's good though, and some of it's fun and some of it's hard, but I think the fact that I waited to learn some of it, it actually clicked more easily. It wasn't the paradigm
Yeah,
shift that you might think. It just was like, oh, it just makes sense now.
yeah, yeah, yeah. It's amazing. It's there's a reason why it's a taboo topic, and I think just the simple fact that people get riled up about it. I have Trump supporter friends or people who are into politics, and literally every post is something to do with Trump or whatever, and I'm one of those people, right? But the issue is for me, or for them, I should say, the issue for them is like as soon as it comes to flat Earth, right? I'll do like 5 posts straight, or like
Mhm.
5 posts a day for a week straight, and it's this huge problem. Why are you so angry? Why are you so mad? And I'm not necessarily angry. I'm just very
Passionate.
concerned that there's this major. Yeah, I'm passionate. There's this huge lie going around, right? And you know, people are just like, how does this affect me? Well, how about if you're not interested, if you're not curious about it, then fine. The conversation's over after that. But if you're going to challenge me, let's talk about it. Like let's actually have an adult conversation about it instead of you being all ad hominem. Oh, you're obsessed in this, like the girl who blocked me. I mean, I thought it was bad when it was with Trump. Now that I look back, I've lost a lot of friends
All right.
more because of flat Earth, and it's really weird, right? It's just how taboo of a topic it is. You know,
Which is
families are being ripped apart.
it's working.
Crazy.
It sure is working then for what its intention was probably for. I was thinking about it today. I was thinking about how there was a time where it was known that it was flat, and then some group decides, okay, we've got to look at how this happened. A group decides, okay, we've got to say it's round. Okay, then we've got to kill those people for saying it's round because we've got to make it look like
Yeah.
they've discovered something that we don't want anyone to
Yeah.
know. So,
Uh-huh.
it's just, and you could go that direction. You could go that
Yeah,
direction
yeah.
in a lot of things,
Flip
but
it around.
Yeah, you could flip it around probably, but that was what my mind was. That's where my mind was going. I was like, geez, that's probably how they did it. They're like, okay, we're gonna get this guy to come out and go, oh, I found out the Earth is round, and the sun is circling around us, and then okay, we got to go kill him for that, so that
Yeah,
nobody,
yeah,
so
yeah,
that
yeah.
people want to
The
know
model
that.
just keeps changing. The model just keeps changing. There's no like. I think when I was in high school or middle school, even the story was that the sun was revolving around us, right? But I think before that, the sun stayed put, right? That's a major leap. That's a major
Oh, and it keeps moving further
for
away. Keeps getting further and
yeah,
further away.
and
There.
and you know,
Oh, I guess it's 93
oh,
million
speak
miles, not 69 million miles.
right, right, right. Yeah, there you go. Exactly. And speaking of that, there's something that I actually came across earlier today. I was kind of like just I don't know. I'm in this flattered mode. I don't know what possessed me, but it was something to do with the Earth, the axis tilt, right? It prompts the Earth to I don't know. It's like it certain like land masses are further away from the sun during certain times of the year, right? But it's during the summer when it's close when it's further, and when it's closer is during the winter or something like that. And I'm like, that's just it right there. Like that, like just that alone, right? You just got to question it. Like,
Right.
does that make any logical sense?
If it's 93 million miles away, how does that slight tilt really adjust the weather to that extent? I mean, I'm sure they've got an answer, and it's probably got a bunch
Right.
of sixes in it.
Right. Exactly. I mean, look at 93. I mean, you flip the six, and then you still got the three. Oh, it's all. I think if it was 63 million miles away, they would be too obvious. But they already took it there when they did the 66,600 miles per hour with the sun, or with the Earth revolving. It's
Right.
just ridiculous. Yeah,
That was
ridiculous,
kind of one of
ridiculous.
the first things that made me question it was all the sixes. I was like, well, that is kind of weird. It's kind of a
Yeah,
bad
speaking of the
deal.
sixes, I mean, these people are obsessed with this thing, right? Like, even when you look at your soap or your hand sanitizer, 99.9 kills 99.9% of bacteria. It's all in our faces. And the I mean, even people in the truth community, you know what I mean, who are just so invested in this science, which is really just pseudoscience. You know what I mean? Like, there's this blurred line, right, for these people between actual science and what authority tells you. Science should be something that you can go ahead outside and just do it yourself. If you have the tools, you just, repeat certain experiments and you'll get the same result. You don't need a guy in a lab coat to confirm it for you, right? But we've reached a point where it's like people are like, well, we're just going to have to wait for that information to come out. I'm like,
Mhm.
from who?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Or you could get it, you could get up in the sky and look out and just see how everything. Like I even do this with my kids. I go, one of them was like, I still think it's a globe or whatever. One of them's like, I still think it's flat. And then we'll go up somewhere and we'll look out on some big expansive like, um, from the mountaintop because I'm in Montana, and I'll say, let's look out here and go, does it look like it's round now? And they'll be like, nope. I mean, if you just do that
Yeah.
logical, I'm up in a high point and I'm looking out. Is there anywhere where it looks like it's curving? And like, being kids,
Right.
my kids aren't going to go, well, it's so big you won't see it. They're not going to do that because they're kids. They're going to
Yeah.
go, no, no, it looks
Because they're
pretty
kids.
flat to me.
Yeah. Common sense, it's more with the children than us, because we are so like torn and tattered and beaten down with all this propaganda. You know what I mean? We don't have time to process for ourselves what we're looking at. Just like, wait, what did Bill Gates say again? Okay, there you go. What did Bill Nye say
Well,
again?
Bill
Neil
Nye.
deGrasse
Yeah,
Tyson. Okay,
Yeah,
okay,
forget it.
okay. Okay. We
Neil
process
deGrasse is
too
probably
much.
Boulay.
No, no, for sure. I mean, I don't doubt it at all. But I mean, he literally said, gravity. I don't know what it is." So next question. It's like it's either a joke to them, or they're just like held against their will in a lot of cases. Because for me personally, I don't care what my profession is. If I have to carry on a major lie like that and potentially ruin my reputation if the truth gets out, I'm good on that. I'm good on that. So I draw again. That's that dotted line with who's who and who's what. But I just can't imagine myself, you know, just carrying the narrative for the deep state. I just can't do it. I'm never.
Yeah, money is a big
So.
deal to a lot of people. I saw a post on Facebook that shows this gal sitting like on this like rock ledge, and it said, "Would you sit here for 2 hours for I don't know, $2 million or something?" And I'm like, no. I'm like, I would not even for $2 billion would I do that,
Yeah,
unless I
yeah,
really
yeah.
enjoyed sitting out on rock ledges that were like hundreds of feet above the ground. I could die in just a misstep. If I
Right,
enjoyed that,
right.
then I would
Yeah,
do it for free. But I'm like, what kind of question is this? Like, would you do this for two
yeah,
million dollars? And I had to
yeah,
throw my whole like, this shouldn't be about money. I do.
yeah,
I throw stuff on
yeah, yeah.
people's posts all the time that probably just looks like trolling, but I'm trolling for the Lord. Is that the thing? I don't know. Is that good?
So
I don't know. Anyway,
to go back to what you were saying about your daughters, my nephew, he's I don't. It's so weird. I think my sister, she's probably like so bothered now at this point. She's just like over me. But it's gotten to a point where my nephew, he's like every single time he sees me, he's like, I still believe the earth is flat. I'm like, okay, so why? Every time I try to challenge him, okay, so now why? Because every time, he'll say, yeah, because I believe you. And I'm like, no, don't ever, ever believe me. Right. Because I want to influence him in how to think as opposed to what
right.
to think. And it's so hard to really, maybe you can help me with this, but lay it out for him, like just explain it to him what's really what, based on the science and based on, what we see. I mean, if you go out to a beach and you see the horizon is, I was one time in Trinidad, flat. I don't know if, I mean, I've seen the horizon millions of times, right? On the beach, on a waterfront, flat. But this particular time, I was like, there's no possible way. So then, I'm squinting out and I see like these boats going forward, and I'm like, okay, people will tell us, all right, the dissenters, they'll say those boats are going over the curve. But once we elevate, if we were to levitate, 100 miles up or whatever, right, 50 miles up, that horizon is still flat. So which one is it, right? It's like, your senses tell you one thing, and you can show a kid this, and they're like, "Oh, okay."
Yeah.
But again, we just go out of our way. It's just,
It,
it's pretty sad.
the good thing is that you said maybe I can help you with this. Is I gave my kids a choice. I didn't tell them you have to think it's flat because I've done all this research and I know what I'm talking about. I just said that's
Yeah,
cool if you think it's a globe. I think it's flat, and
yeah,
if the other one thinks it's flat, cool. Like I gotta let them come to
yeah,
that. I cannot force.
and yeah,
The only thing I pressure them on is understanding that they are created specially. That is important
yeah,
because wow, nobody believes that these days, and there's so much suicide, and all the singers are
uh,
pushing it. You look at like Billie Eilish, she certainly wants you to have
yeah,
nightmares and want to kill yourself. So that's the
uh,
only thing I want to
crazy.
force on them if I can is, which I can't force, but I want them to know that they are fearfully and wonderfully made, and that they are special. That they're not just a speck in a huge universe. I mean, if they believe in that and they can find God's, I mean, I have friends that are good Christians and they believe in that and they think that God created that and they still love Jesus, and that's great because it's not salvational. My soul being saved does not depend on the shape of my belief of the shape of the
Shape
earth.
of the shape of
It
yeah. You're
it's
right.
not based on that. But anyway, just to I'm gonna tell them what I think. But if they're gonna say I don't know if I agree with that, I'm gonna go okay, cool. Then you can do your research on that, and I'll do my research the other way, and we'll
Yeah,
talk about it. And when they get older, we'll have these conversations. We'll be able to just
right.
have
Yeah,
intellectual conversations about it.
yeah. That's beautiful. Yeah, give him a choice. I like that. I
So
like that. I
somebody
mean, he's
some
7.
yeah,
He's too busy picking his nose. But
my
he'll
kids
get
are
to that
7 and
point.
8.
He'll get to that point.
My kids are
Yeah,
7 and 8.
yeah. He'll get. And this kid is super. Like, we have the same exact birthday. I see a lot of similarities. He's like, always asking me about, I'm vegan or whatever. He's always like, "What's that? Is it made out of an animal?" or is that? Oh no, he's not an animal. He's like, is that plants? Like, yeah, Liam. Salads are plants. No, they're mostly plants. And it's just I can tell he has like uh this just the kids, they're so innocent, and they're just so naturally curious, and you don't want to tell them what to believe, and I love your approach, actually. And if that's what you want to believe, well, I earned this conviction, I worked for it,
Mm.
so I don't want to force you to, I like that, I love that, actually. Love it.
So good
Love it.
segue into where to find you, because somebody said this guy is cool, or I can't remember. This guy rocks. He's really fun. I don't remember the exact words. Where
Wow.
does he have his own
Epic.
YouTube? So tell people where to find you.
Okay, so I'm on Facebook. So my Facebook, there we go. We're gonna plug that in. QUE space Cassells. CASSELLS. Now on Instagram, if you want to look me up, I'm not on there as much as Facebook, but I've got KE Cassells. So you got two versions of me. You got the QUE version, and then you got the KE. And then I don't have a YouTube channel yet. And it's funny. I believe Aaron and I, we were just talking about this prior to going live. But I am consolidating a lot of material, so just stay tuned. But I do have music on SoundCloud. You can find me under the KE Cassells. Got a lot of music there. Very conscious stuff, compared to, for the genre that I make. So yeah, hopefully you guys will enjoy that. And
And then
thank you, whoever that was.
you do have a
Yeah, appreciate that.
podcast, right? But you've only
Yeah, oh
done.
yeah, just launched the podcast. So far it's only one.
Okay.
I've been recording the follow-ups, but I'm a super perfectionist. So I think once I get to episode maybe 4 or 5, that's when I'll just go on a crazy push, so people can kind of binge, or just have something to you know follow up on after the first couple. You know.
Real quick, Sophia for Christ says, my boyfriend from 50 years ago, don't know if she's literally saying 50 years ago or not, was a captain on a ship, and he said the Earth curves every 7 miles. And the great thing is that has actually been disproved, because of the math just doesn't add up. It doesn't work,
Yeah, yeah, it
because
doesn't.
they've
Yeah,
taken cameras where you can see out, like, so they say, like, if the Earth was
yeah,
curving, then the things would drop so much every time, for that 7 feet or whatever, or every 7 miles it would drop so many feet, and that's why you see it go off in the horizon. But now they've got cameras
yeah,
that can go out like 25 miles or more,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
and the thing
Actually, I had,
hasn't dropped at
yeah,
all.
at all. There's something that I had here recently. I just want to pull it up only because I want to pull up specific numbers. But if they got laser tests, right?
Mhm.
You know what I'm saying? They have
Mhm.
the lighthouse
Mhm.
effect. It's probably going to take me a little minute to find it, but
That's okay.
I mean, this is a very scientific theory. It's not a theory at all. You can literally go out right ahead. It says, how far could you theoretically see from atop Mount Everest in a perfectly clear weather with perfect vision and without any obstacles? I'm sorry, this is so small. And that's around 211 miles. That doesn't reflect 7 or 8 inches per square mile at all. I mean, obviously, me just saying that out loud is not going to quite click, to the average, brain. That doesn't even click for me. But I actually took the time out to work it out and to look at. I didn't conduct my own experiments other than look out inside, and just see and just feel that I'm not spinning at 1,040
Yeah.
miles per hour. And not only that, speaking of the rotation, if you're closer to the north or south pole as opposed to the equator, you should feel a difference, right? Because at the equator you're moving at 1,040, but if
Right.
you're closer to a pole, you should feel a different, whatever you don't
And
feel, right?
maybe you'd
So
weigh less too,
it
or way more. I don't know.
right, yeah, yeah, yeah. So it's like, all of this stuff you can prove to yourself by asking your senses to or just tap into your senses. That's it. You know,
Do you want to know what the
if people
nail?
say they'll static gravity, what is that?
I
Good.
think the
Sorry.
nail in the coffin for me was somebody, I don't remember who anymore, but somebody in the chat might know, because I know it wasn't just a friend or somebody, just it was a channel that I heard, but they said if you start digging in the earth, at what point do you start digging over your head to come out the other side?
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
like, that
Exactly.
kind of just, and everybody's like, well, it's not really like that in the middle of the earth. I'm like, you're missing the point. You're missing the
Yeah.
point of what it's
There you
like
go.
in the middle of the earth. If I'm digging at my feet,
My
if I
Yeah.
come out the
Yeah.
other
My
side
favorite thing,
digging at my feet are going to come out upside down.
upside down. My favorite thing is, so where's the edge? How do you know there's an edge? I'm like, how do you know there's a core? Show me a picture of it. How do we get to the core? How do you know? The biggest hole, the furthest hole I ever dug was, I don't even remember, but it doesn't even scratch the surface, the proverbial surface. You know what I mean? Um, it, it's it's just, what do you call that? Strawman arguments,
Yeah.
right? Like, show me the pictures. Okay, well, show me the gravity. All right, you believe
Yeah.
gravity's there, right? But there's literally no experiment done. Someone brought up, I forgot, the Cavendish experiment. Um, if I explain how it works, I'm gonna butcher it. But I looked into it, and it's a very controlled, just like all of these other experiments. They're all controlled, right? If you watch it on camera, there's cuts and in the filming and everything, and there's so many other ones. But if I can't conduct this myself, if you gave me all of that, stuff, all the tools in order to prove it, and I can't do it a million times with the same success rate, even if it's 900 times out of 901 times, right? It's not science. It's not, because it doesn't follow the 5 steps of the scientific method. And that goes back to what we were saying. This is a very scientific thing.
Right.
And here's my question, going back to the core, right? This molten lava at the middle. How is the water? What is the water sticking to if gravity isn't proven, right? Sorry.
That's okay. Somebody just said I'm so ready to hear how space is fake. You told me that once. Okay, space is fake because we haven't been out there, and I don't think there is a space out there. I think beyond the dome is the heavens, and it talks about that again in Isaiah 40, chapter 4. Sorry, chapter 40, verse 22, about the Lord sitting on the throne above the circle of earth, and also other, where we can see under the curtains of the earth, and the earth is firm and secure. So beyond the stars and the sun and the moon, I believe, are in the firmament. They're in there. And you've seen pictures of
Yeah.
like stars where they're doing that, just like they look like a wobbly, shaky thing. When people have now
Yeah.
finally been able to really get in up close on them,
Yeah.
and so
Mhm.
they're not what they're telling us they are in the textbooks when you see a close up of a star. Now that we have the technology to do it, and
Yeah.
and the moon could possibly be a reflection of the Earth. I've seen some of that its imagery is a reflection of the Earth. Have you seen that?
I've heard a lot of things about the moon. There's some people that say it's like a bowl, like a dish, which is why you have the different phases, and it's dipping into water within the firmament. And speaking of water, you raised a really important point. If you really look at the stars, what it looks like is like little light balls within like a transparent container.
Right,
Uh,
right.
with water in it, right? Like it just looks like a little. It's just remarkable how we can literally do this ourselves. You don't even need a telescope necessarily. You get a really good camera, you zoom right into those bad boys, and you see they're not. Saturn, Mars, whatever. And this one guy asked me, "Do you own a telescope?" I'm like, "Dude, I can tell you anything right now. Do you? Like, you know what I mean? Like, have you?" And let's be honest with ourselves, right? You don't have to. You can tell me anything the way I can tell you anything.
Totally. And
There's no doubt in my mind. Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead.
oh, I was gonna say, and what somebody said that they had a friend that said he could see a curve at 65,000 feet. I don't know. Maybe he just thinks he could, and maybe he could. I'm not gonna like. And she said this is not my hill, and I agree. I'm not gonna die on this hill, but I like it. It's fun,
Yeah,
and I have a belief that it's
it's fun.
flat.
It's fun.
So that's where I'm
Yeah,
at.
can I say
Yeah.
I've flown for the past 3+ years, almost 4 years, with a major airline. You know what I mean? As a flight attendant. So I mean, especially when I got into flat Earth, all I would do is stare out the window. And anyone who says that they see a curve, they have to agree that we live on a soda can because depending on the angle, let's say this is the window, right? Of course, towards the ends of
Mhm.
that window, you're gonna see a curve because it fuses in with the fuselage, right? So when you move to a different angle, the curve moves on each side of the window, right? So no matter how high you go up, especially when you're in the cockpit, I've been in the cockpit. Any chance that I get to go in the cockpit while we're flying, I do it, right, all the time, and it is like it's flat, but it's just this illusion. It's and this is done on purpose.
Mhm.
We can
Yes.
construct planes like
Totally.
boxes, and we'll see a lot, a lot different aerial views.
Yeah. Okay, there was something else. What was it? Did I read it? Oh, somebody said, okay, so 2 Death 3 said, I saw a video where the moon is in front of the clouds. I saw that firsthand, and my daughter pointed it out. My daughter said,
Wow.
why is the clouds like doing that? Why are they behind it? Why does it look like that? And I was like, that's a really good question. Now I tried to take a picture of it, but this is not conducive for that.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
just couldn't get
yeah,
a clear.
yeah.
It's just I don't have
Mhm.
the proper equipment, but I was just like, I almost didn't believe my own eyes. Had my daughter not said
Yeah,
something, I wouldn't have believed it even. I'd probably be sitting here not even telling you the story because I'd be like, maybe I didn't really see that. But again,
yeah,
how
yeah.
kids are. The
Yeah,
kids
and you
saw
know
it.
when a kid brings it up. Yeah, you a kid brings it up, you're like you're tuned in because they're not. Kids aren't liars. Kids aren't like really that delusional. But what I was gonna say was I've actually seen videos like civilian video of the same thing with the sun. A few of them. So
And they're the same size.
really
The
bizarre.
moon and the sun are the same size. There's
Same
no way
size.
they're a
Oh, let's
different
talk about
size.
eclipses.
Okay.
Eclipses. Speaking of which, I've lit and I remember this. I think it was January 31st of 2019 or 18, 2019, 18. And then 19, I think. And it was when we had the super moon. I was leaving from California, headed over to Colorado. And they called it the eclipse, right? I mean, I think that the moon has an eclipse just with the phases, right? What we define by eclipse. I literally saw the sun and the moon in the sky at the same time in the sky. Now, this goes over a lot of people's heads, right? You have to have a perfect syzygy with the sun, the moon, and the earth. If the earth is in the middle, right? And this is where it all falls apart. Let's say
Yes,
that
that's right.
we're in the middle here and we're looking right up at the moon and the sun is over there. Oh, you mean to tell me the shadows bouncing off of the earth and going onto the moon? No one can explain it. They try to explain it away. NASA can't even explain it
Mhm.
correctly. You know what I mean? They can fluff it up and make it cute however they want, but it's just never going to make sense.
Somebody mentioned a black sun. That's what causes the eclipse.
Yeah, I mean, could be it.
No
Could be.
idea.
I literally, I just don't know. Again, I know what isn't. You know what I mean? I know some things that isn't, and that's enough for me to apply deduction and just declare that we're being lied to about the shape and the movement of our home.
Yeah, there's so much we don't know that I do believe um, has been kept from us, which would, explain like where there is information out there that should have been kept in Scripture possibly, and Enoch goes into great description, I think, of the earth and that kind
Hmm.
of stuff, explaining some of these things better. So I think the first book
Hmm.
of Enoch is great. I don't recommend people who you can read the second and third book of Enoch, but I don't think that I don't think they correspond well with the Bible, and I think it's different writers, and it just doesn't. My discernment meter says So anyway, also for my Christian friends, that this is all. We don't need these extra biblical texts to know Jesus, to know creation, to get the information that's truly vital. but you can look to
Mhm.
them and they can be very helpful to answering a lot of questions.
Yeah. Very, very true.
Anything else you want to say on it? Was there anything we didn't go over you had some notes on?
Yeah. I mean, this is a waterfall of a conversation, right? Nah.
Totally.
I mean, I think we touched a lot. I mean, it's like kind of surfing the web. Like, where do I start? you know.
I think that the Serpent-Seed one is good information. The like I said, the website I was on today had so much more. I mean, I went to a website to just kind of recap some of this Hebrew language and stuff that I had taken notes on here. But it also got
Yeah.
into the pre-Adamic people and how weren't supposed to breed with them. And somebody else said something about who were Cain's wives and were they some of those pre-Adamic. And like I told you, they were kind of like grunt workers for the earth or something. They weren't the
Mhm.
same as Adam and Eve. But anyway, I don't have a lot of knowledge on that, so I wasn't going to get into it. But it'd be fun to learn more and maybe get into sometime, another time, or whatever else
Yeah. I would love
topic you
to.
like. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I would love to. This is a topic that I'll eternally be invested in.
I
Eternally.
think so for anyone interested, there's the Aramaic Targum is a more enhanced scripture of definitely more of a story to Adam and Eve, and that if you're interested, if you think that kind of stuff is Gnostic teaching and you're scared of it, don't go near it. Then don't blame me, though. I'm not a Gnostic, nor am I saying that I have secret knowledge that you have to earn. That's the difference between Gnostics and Jesus. Is Jesus said, "I, I'm it. Like I am the way and the truth and the light." And you can get to the Father through me, and that's it. That's all you had to know. It's not hidden, it's not secret, and you don't have to earn it. It's just there
Right.
for the
Right.
taking. So that
I
was
think
my
one
final
thing we
thought.
can all agree on.
Yeah, go
Yeah, no,
ahead.
I think one thing that we can all agree on is that there's a creator. Like anyone with any emotional or sophisticated intelligence, when you tap into the truth that's etched in your heart, it's plain as day.
One more thing. Sophia for Christ says I don't. She doesn't understand how that we can have dark and day and night if the Earth is flat. That was a question I had too. But we know that the Earth is not
Can I
small.
take this one?
Yes, do it. Go.
All right, so there's a light over there in the corner. Over here, it's a little more dark. The sun is very local and smaller, and there's a circuit right over the Earth, just along with the moon. It's kind of works like that, you know. If it's concentrated on one part of the Earth at one point in time, while it's going in a circle, you're gonna have day and light in different times in different zones.
And that's one way. And then another way of thinking of it is it's going through tracks and coming. That's why I said there was probably two, because in that picture I showed you with the square and the tracks, there could be one rising while the other one's setting. And again, it being such a big expanse, there's still a sun, but it's.
I've heard about that. I've seen pilot videos. This was early on in my journey, so I didn't really know what to make of it. It was a little bit too
Yeah,
at the
I
time,
know. I know
but
it's what you're getting
I
at
don't
there.
rule it out. I don't
Yeah.
rule it out. At this point, the Earth is flat, so how close minded can I be?
Right, and because it's big, like you said, there's a light way over here that's lighting locally very well, but it's dark. And I've seen really good memes or images. Oh, speaking of memes, I wanted to mention to you that on one of your Facebook posts, there was one funny meme that was probably a globe believer, but it made me laugh. It was an asteroid that came to the flat Earth, and then it like hit and then like flung the
Oh yeah,
dinosaurs into space.
the dinosaurs. Yeah, yeah, yeah,
I
yeah.
actually thought
And
that
that
was
go
pretty
again. That
funny.
goes back into the lies. It all connects. All connect. Fossil fuel. It all
Dinosaurs.
connects.
I definitely believe
All
in
connects.
dinosaurs, but I think humans existed with them, and it was part of the whole Nephilim creation, giant times. Who knows? But anywho, any last
Interesting.
thoughts before we tell everybody we love them and good night?
Nah, but we definitely got to do this again. That's my last thought. We got to do this again, and
I'm glad you.
particularly with love.
I'm glad you like it. I'm glad that you're having fun enough to
Yeah,
want to come back. That makes me feel good about. That gives
of
me
course.
some edification for what I'm doing here, and to have listeners get involved and want to talk about it too. It's really fun. Somebody said tried watching on Twitch, no luck. I don't know. It said it was Doc Michael was watching on Twitch earlier. I don't understand Twitch that well, so
Mhm.
it's a process. But anyway,
Yeah.
with that, I guess we'll just tell everybody we love and appreciate them, and we'll tell them good night. Until next time.
Bye, everybody.
All
Thank you
right.
so much for having me. Of course.
Hey, thank you for being
Take
here.
care.
I look forward to when you come back. And peace and love of the Lord. Good night.
Good night.